Hey. So I've had several people to ask about a braid tutorial or a braid video, and going through my files, I found this of me working on my girl Cammie. Cameron is 3 years old, and this was from a few weeks ago, I believe, of me just giving her a regular style. So here is kind of the tutorial. So before I really get into braiding, I'm trying to talk fast. There are a few things that you will need before you start braiding, which are a blow dryer to blow your hair out, making sure that it's nice and not bone straight, but it is smoothed out. A metal rat tail comb, which is what you see me using here, and preferably something like Shine and Jam that you can use to perfect your lines and use on the braid to make it nice and smooth and moisturized. So going back to what you need, a metal rat tail comb is always better than those kind of thick plastic ones, because the metal tail comb, as you can see me doing here, allows you to really perfect your lines and make them look really neat. And it's something about those plastic ones where you just really cannot get in there and get those lines as crisp as they need to be. So while you are working on your lines, you see that I use the Shine and Jam to kind of help clean the line up more. One of my mentors, she calls it the part for direction first and then part for perfection. So when you're parting for direction, this is by Jada, Braided Rebel, actually. You part for direction first, and that shows you where you want the line to go. Is it right? Is it, perfectly centered, or just like I'm doing a zigzag line? Are my zigs zagging? And then you use the Shine and Jam just a little bit to kind of coat the part, and you're going to go in and create the line using your fingers and the comb to separate the hairs from where they need to be. And you're basically going to do that for every single line that you create on the head. So as you can see here, I am going through and I'm now starting to create the lines for the braids that I'm going to put in. That zigzag line is my main line that's going to set the tone of the style, or it's kind of going to be the focal point of the style that I'm creating on Cameron. So when you're working on your braiding at the whatever section that you're on, the first braid is always kind of going to set the tone for the rest of the style, or at least for that section. So you want to make sure that this one is kind of exactly how you want it to be, using that same parting technique where you're going to part for direction first, lay your product, and then part for perfection, where you're taking your finger and using the comb to separate those hairs that don't need to be in the part. Once you have your part settled, you're also going to use a little Shine and Jam on that section that you're braiding to kind of create, like I said, smooth it out, make sure all the hairs are getting into line as you're getting ready to braid. And that also helps to keep the section moisturized. And I know it'll give that shine that a lot of you guys see that braiders have when they braid. So when you start your braid, you're going to start with a very tiny section at the top of that part that you have, and you're going to get into the rotation. I know you see a lot of braiders, they use different fingers, different placements. This is my preferred method of braiding regular natural hair and also braiding with weave. You're going to take that smaller section and just keep braiding, and you're going to rotate these sections into themselves. I would have to do another video to really show you. But each section is basically going to rotate in and out of one another. And you're going to take smaller pieces from the rest of the section to create the rest of the braid. One key thing is to make sure that you're not dragging the hair too far, or you're not grabbing too big of a section, because if you grab too big of a section, then the braid is not going to be as tight as you need it to be. Now, don't get it confused with me or you pulling the hair tightly, but that braid needs to be uniform. And if you're dragging it too far, it'll create gaps that shouldn't be there. And as you can see, Cameron is pretty chill. She's on her tablet and she has like my materials in her hand. So most of my clients know that I don't braid tight, and I probably will never braid tight. So as you can see here, once you get down to or off of the scalp, you're going to rotate your hands to only using me personally, sometimes I just use my index and my thumb to finish the rest of the braid. But you're going to rotate your hands around so that way you can braid the rest of the braid and move on to the next section. Make sure that when you are parting the rest of the sections, you keep your sizing in mind. This top part is going to be a little weird because I'm angling it in different ways. This actually turned out to be a one ponytail at the top side style with two braids hanging down. But even still, making sure that your braids are, or your sections are basically the same size is key, because that'll help you create uniform braids. Sometimes if I feel like I'm missizing or, getting off with my sizing, I will use the end of the comb and measure from part to part, and then use that to help me create braids that are basically the same size. I am pretty good at eyeballing it, but sometimes I'm like, nah, that doesn't look right. That's a little too big. So you're going to, and I hope this demonstration right here kind of shows you're going to take your time and rotate all the way through, making sure that you're not grabbing too much hair at the same time. But you're going to rotate and keep going until you get off of the head, and then you're going to finish braiding that braid all the way down. You can also see here that I am combing through the section as I'm braiding, and that's to make sure that, number one, there's no tangles, and that is also to make sure that, again, every hair is smoothed out and you don't have to worry about any clumping, any pieces that are missing, and the braid comes out nice and smoothly. Also, you see me adding just a tiny bit of Shine and Jam as I go down the braid as well. Again, that's to make sure that it is moisturized, because this style is going to be in for 2 to 3 weeks maximum. So you want to make sure that the braid is moisturized while it is in, so that way there's no breakage, there's no damage when you take it out. You're going to braid it all the way to the end as far as you can go, because again, that helps to keep the hair protected, so that way it's moisturized and it grows. So again, going back to parting, and as you can see, her hair is natural, and it sometimes, as I'm going along, it will revert, but that is perfectly fine. Keep going. It shouldn't completely revert to where it is tangled. You still should be able to work your way through the hair at some level of not having to hurt the person or hurt yourself if you're braiding your own hair. So same thing. You're going to use the comb to find your part. And one tip that I want to give you is using your fingers, because sometimes, I know for me, I have clients that have a ton of hair, younger, middle, and older. And so sometimes it's hard for me to find the end of the part. So one tip that I use, I don't think I showed it here, is you place your finger, whether it be, I usually use my index or my middle finger of my non-dominant hand. So I'm right-handed. So everything that I do primarily will come from my right side. Or if you're left-handed, whichever way, but I use my non-dominant hand. I place either my index or my ring finger on the head or wherever I want the line to end. I place it there, and I take the metal rat tail comb and I guide the comb there, whether I can see it or not. Somehow we naturally are able to do that without looking. And that helps you to at least be able to part for direction first. You can see the rough line of where that part is supposed to be. And once you separate the hair, then you can go back and add the Shine and Jam and clean up the part and part for perfection. So As you can see here, I'm still going through and doing the same exact thing. I've parted it. I've used my Shine and Jam to clean the part up, and now I'm getting ready to braid. The smaller section, you part it in, section it in 3, and then you begin your rotations where you're going through and grabbing a very tiny bit of hair. And again, you're not pulling the hair very tight. You're pulling it enough to make sure that that braid stays centered in the section, and you're pulling it tight enough to where it's nice and taut and it is neat as you're braiding along. And you're going to go through all the way through, comb through the hair as I'm doing here, if you need to straighten that section out and make sure there's no clumps and bumps. And you're going to go all the way through until the end. I hope this tutorial helps start your braid journey.